Hey guys, so I'm really sorry if I've been super MIA this last month. I was just finishing up with finals, starting 2 new jobs, and, generally trying to not do anything with my life because I was so sick of having obligations in school and so on and so forth, and you've heard these excuses a million times. So anyway, I am really sorry that I have not been around. So to make up for that, if any of you guys had anything exciting happen that I missed because I've been terrible about watching videos lately, please let me know in the comments if there's a video that you would like me to watch, or if there's a video that I didn't comment on and I probably should have because it was awesome. I missed out on a lot. There are several things going on in my little YouTube newsfeed that I do not understand, and there are things that are happening and I'm like, what is that? I missed out on a giant inside joke. Also, I read a ridiculous amount of books this month for not having time to do anything, right? I guess I just didn't want to do anything important. I just wanted to lay down and read a lot. I read 9 books this month, which is my best so far this year. I know there are people out there who read 14 books a month, and that's ridiculous, but I'm not quite as good as that, so this is pretty good for me. I also did the debut-a-thon, which was reading a bunch of debut books from this year, which was really cool. I only read 2 for that, but they were both really good, so let's just get into it. The first book that I read this month was Across the Universe by Beth Revis, and this was a viewer's choice from March or something, and I just hadn't gotten around to it, and I finally did read it. It was amazing, and everyone should read it because it was fantastic. I love that there's more sci-fi happening in the YA genre. I don't see it very often, and every time I do pick one up, I love it so much. The second book I read was Girl of Fire and Thorns by Rae Carson. Now this was a fantasy novel, and I really enjoyed this because it really just took from different historical aspects of different time periods, and it really felt to me like it was Spain, kind of, during the Crusades or something cool like that. I don't know, it was very cool. It took elements of religion and politics and government, and it just combined them all in this really cool fantasy setting, and I just loved it. If anyone out there is a fantasy fan, absolutely recommend it. The next book I read was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, and now this one is the sequel to Cinder, and I know it took me forever to read it. That's because my library took forever to get it, so I finally read that. Oh my gosh, it was amazing, and I can't believe I have to wait even longer for Crest to come out. The next book I read was The Ask and the Answer by Patrick Ness. This is the sequel to The Knife of Never Letting Go, and it was really, really good. Not nearly as good as the first book in my opinion, but that's because my favorite character is in the second book, and I don't know, man. I don't know if I can handle it without my favorite character. It's a little bit heartbreaking for me. So it was still very good, and of course Patrick Ness ripped out my heart again, and I can't wait to read the third book. The next book I read was Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist by someone, oh shit. The next book I read was Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist by Rachel Cohn. Now this is a book about romancy stuff, which is really not my thing usually. I don't usually pick up books like that, but I have done so more recently since reading some of Stephanie Perkins' work, which was fantastic. This did not hold a candle to Anna and the French Kiss or Lola and the Boy Next Door. I mean, obviously, can anyone really write romance the way Stephanie Perkins does? Probably not. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was well done and well handled, but it was very insta-love for me, and it was probably the most book I read this month, but it was still fairly good, which is saying something about the rest of the books I read this month, I guess. The next book I read was Little Brother by Cory Doctorow. Now this was a fantastic book. It was a futuristic 1984 kind of novel, Little Brother, Big Brother, if that makes any sense. And it was wonderful. I recommend this book to everyone who likes anything to do with computers or dystopian or conspiracy theories. This book is fantastic, and it's a really interesting sort of slightly more young adult take on the 1984 story, and I just thought it was phenomenally done and really entertaining, and I was on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading this book. So I absolutely recommend it to everyone. The next book I read was City of a Thousand Dolls by Miriam Forster. This is also an excellent book. Recommend to all of my high fantasy fans, or just fantasy in general. It was very cool. The cultural aspects of the story were amazing. The world building was brilliant. And the characters were all really endearing. And it was just kind of this fun little fantasy murder mystery story. And I cannot wait for the sequel. Very excited to see where Forster goes with these books. This was the first book that I read for the debut-a-thon also, and it was a really good one to choose because it was a fast read. The next book I read was Deluxe by Anna Godberson. Now this is a book that I started a really long time ago and I just had never finished, and I kind of sat down and was like, I feel like reading something kind of historical and not involving a lot of brain power. So I just went ahead and finished it. It was totally like Gossip Girl meets the late 1800s. It was awesome. Very, very mindless reading. It was not very engaging, but it was still very like entertaining. And the last book that I read for this month was The Reese Malcolm List by Amy Spalding, and this was another one for the debut-a-thon. And this book was about like family dynamics and getting to know each other and musicals, and it was just really heartwarming and interesting and fun, and it was a really fast read, and I totally recommend it. I'm not usually a person for contemporary fiction, but I thought this was fantastic, and I definitely recommend it to people, even people who don't really usually enjoy contemporary. I thought it was really well done. So those are the books that I read in June, and as you know, now it's time for the TBR Viewer's Choice section. You may notice that my read list did not contain 1984, which was the winning book from last month, and that is because my copy is ridiculously tiny print, and every time I sat down to read it, I got a headache and I couldn't do it. So I got it on audiobook, and I'm going to be listening to it on audiobook this next month. And I will be doing a combined review of that and Little Brother, because I think it will be really interesting to compare the old classic with the newer take on the story. So fear not, I promise I will actually read it, and I will get you all a review of it. I'm not slacking off totally. I'm a little bit slacking off. But I promise I won't be slacking off for the rest of this month. So anyway, let's get on to the Viewer's Choice section. Now in this section, if you haven't seen one of my wrap-up videos before, I have this nice little TBR jar that has a lot of books in it. It has all the books behind me, as well as several other books that I have in my house that I have not read yet. And I'm going to pick 4 out of the jar, and you guys get to vote for whichever one you want me to read. Now only vote for one, because if you vote for 2, it just gets confusing and I can't deal with it, so I'll just end up picking whichever one you said first, and that just doesn't make anyone happy. So go ahead and just vote for whichever one you want me to read, and I will read it in the next month, except that I didn't last month, but I promise I will this month, and then I will do a review of it after I'm finished with it. So the first book is Sweet Evil by Wendy Higgins. This book has come up before, I believe. I need to remix my little jar here. But Sweet Evil is a book, it's a paranormal romance, and I don't actually have it with me, it's on my Kindle, but I will leave links to the Goodreads down below for you to check out. It's paranormal romance. I've heard really great things about it. Wendy was one of my friends from back in the old Ink Pop days, and she was really cool, so I'm assuming it's an awesome book. And I know that the sequel just came out recently, and it's kind of a big deal, I guess, all over the internet. Everybody's talking about it. So if you want me to read Sweet Evil, go ahead and vote for that down in the comments. Okay, the next book on the list is Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. I don't know if you can see that, but I do have that book. My copy is a little bit beat up, but this is Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly. It's a historical fiction, I believe, about the French Revolution, I believe. It sounds really interesting, I guess. Yeah, it's maybe about ghosts or something. Anyway, historical fiction about French Revolution, so if you'd like me to read that, go ahead and vote for it in the comments below. And the next book on the list is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. And that is this right here. This is a dystopian about people who are ugly until they get an operation to make them pretty again, and I guess ugly people can actually think for themselves and pretty people become like zoned out drones or something like that. I don't know. But it sounds really cool. It's all dystopian and whatnot, and I've heard this series is fantastic. So if you would like me to read Uglies by Scott Westerfeld, go ahead and leave a comment below. And the last book for this, I'm going to reach way down the bottom. Pick something, if I can actually grab anything. Okay, here's a slip paper. The Help by Catherine Stockett. This is The Help by Catherine Stockett. This one is in my room, which is why you wouldn't have seen it behind me. This is a historical fiction as well. It was made into a movie. I know it was super popular. It's about a girl who's a journalist, and she ends up interviewing all of the help that her parents have with basically the, it's after after the Civil War, obviously. It's in like the 50s or something, but it's the black women who are working as basically indentured servants for very, very minimal wages, and talking to them about all the horror stories they've had to deal with and so on and so forth. And I've seen previews for the movie and it looked amazing, so I bet the book is really awesome too. So if you'd like me to read this, go ahead and leave a comment below. So just to recap, the 4 books for my viewer's choice are The Help by Catherine Stockett, Uglies by Scott Westerfeld, Revolution by Jennifer Donnelly, and Sweet Evil by Wendy Higgins. And there will be a picture somewhere around here so you can see the pretty cover. The cover is really, really pretty. So yeah, that's my stack there for this month. Go ahead and vote down below. If you want to talk about any of the books that I read this month, I'm totally down to talk about those. Or if you have suggestions for books you'd like me to read, go ahead and leave a comment below as well. I will see you guys next time. Bye!